Welcome, welcome everybody. It is Antietam 162. You might call it Sharpsburg 162, and it's cool either way you say it. I'm Gary Adelman. We got Andy Poulton behind the camera. We've got a special guest coming on soon, and we're just going to hit the highlights here of Antietam. We're not going to blanket the field. We've done Unknown Antietam before. We have hit this place really hard for the last 7 years or so on anniversary. So check out our Antietam 156, 157, 158, and so on coverage to check out your favorite part of the battlefield. In fact, we have a map that shows you where we have shot our various videos over the years, and maybe we'll put up the link for that or guide you toward that map there. So let me bring us up to Antietam, probably quicker than most people do it. The whole war in the East, in the Civil War, really consists of a few grand movements, maybe as many as 5. They start around Washington, they fight the Battle of Bull Run, at which time the troops go and engage around Richmond. That's the Peninsula Campaign and the 7 days. After Robert E. Lee takes command, pushes McClellan away from Richmond, where he changes his base to the James River, Lee moves back north again. He's going to engage another Union army under Pope. That's 2nd Manassas and Chantilly, as well as the Battle of Cedar Mountain. Then they're going to come up here to where we stand right now at Antietam. We'll come back to that a moment. Lee will retrograde back into Virginia. They'll fight around Fredericksburg twice. That's Fredericksburg and Chancellorsville, at which time they're going to start moving north again. That results in the Gettysburg Campaign. And after that, a slow movement inexorably south back toward Richmond. That's the Overland Campaign. They're around Petersburg for a while, and then it comes to an end in 1865 in Appomattox. And there are 2 movements in the Shenandoah Valley, multiple, but we'll call them 2 during that time. And that's the whole war in the East. All the battles you've heard of, Spotsylvania, Wilderness, Winchester, Antietam, Manassas, they all fit into one of those movements here. And we are squarely in the 2nd year of the Civil War here at Antietam, and I'm standing at the Epicenter, land that you helped us to preserve around 2016 and 2017, and we're looking north toward the famous Cornfield. Now, the Battle of Antietam results, of course, when Robert E. Lee starts moving north after the Battle of 2nd Manassas and Chantilly. Lee comes into the north. He thinks he can maybe keep foreign powers away. He thinks maybe people will flock to his cause. He's marching through the wrong part of Maryland for that. And George McClellan, after finding some of his lost orders, Special Orders 191, will end up pushing against Robert E. Lee in some of those mountains off to my left, the Battle of South Mountain, a bloody affair that would have been the costliest battle in all of American history had it been fought 14 months earlier. Okay, but the cost of war has already started to move up by then. Of course, you know, McClellan pushes Lee away from the South Mountain. Lee takes position here along the rolling, beautiful hills in Maryland, not to be beautiful for long. And to talk about the fighting and what we call the first phase, sort of the Battle of Antietam, let me bring on our good friend. This is Dennis Frye. You've seen him on a lot of our videos before. He is one of the earliest members of the battlefield preservation movement.
Good to see everybody again.
And of course, longtime ranger, author, guide, good friend. I'll stop there.
Hey, buddy.
Take it away, man. Well, we going for the hug?
Yes, sir. Yeah,
All
thank
right.
you. And co-founder of American Battlefield Trust.
Co-founder of our predecessor organization.
Our organization, yes.
And he was involved here at Antietam early on. Come on, let's do this.
40 years ago. Yeah, this is my battlefield. This is my home battlefield. Literally, I have roots in the ground here. My mother's maiden name is Poffenberger, and the Poffenberger families own much of the ground that you can see around us. And so this is truly a home place for me. I have roots, deep roots here in this area, dating back to the 1760s and 1770s. And so Antietam is more than a place. It is my roots, it is my soul. And I always feel, when I come here, I feel, just as you do. Antietam is one of the best preserved battlefields in the National Park system. It looks a lot like it did. Many soldiers could come back here today and be able to stand at a place and say, I recognize this place, I know this place, because it's changed in many cases so little. But keep in mind, as Gary points out, what we're talking about here is not a happy affair. It's an invasion. It's an invasion of the United States of America by a Confederate States Army. And I just want to make sure you understand, General Lee didn't come here, put his finger on the map, point out the Antietam Creek and say, I intend to fight here. No, no, no. This is pure happenstance. It's completely because of confrontation of 2 moving armies that just happened to move and lodge against each other right here. And so this was not planned. In fact, you see that mountain off in the distance, way out there? Way out there? That is, as Gary pointed out, South Mountain. That's almost Pennsylvania. And that's where Lee's going. We were going to Pennsylvania. Maryland was just a pass-through. We're going to Pennsylvania. We don't make it. George McClellan blocks Lee here, stops Lee here, and we don't make it. So a key to the stop is this. Look over here. You see this fence row You can just barely see the fence row out through the field, and you can see some corn in the background. That's a highway. That's the Hagerstown Turnpike. Look back this way. You can actually see the road as you look at this direction to the south, the Hagerstown Turnpike. That road is a north-south spear right into Pennsylvania. And that's where General Lee intends to go. But he's not going to make it because McClellan, on the other side of the Antietam Creek, and the Antietam Creek is parallel to the mountain you see in the distance. That's South Mountain. The Antietam is flowing in this direction from north to south towards the Potomac River. McClellan's army is on the other side of the Antietam. It's like a moat between the two armies. So as long as McClellan stays over there, Lee can march right on into Pennsylvania with the Antietam Creek as his right flank. But McClellan has another plan. On September the 16th, the day after the retreat from South Mountain by Lee, McClellan's going to follow him. And McClellan on September the 16th says, I tell you what, General Lee, I'm not going to let you go up that road towards Hagerstown and towards Pennsylvania. I'm going to block it. So on the 16th, McClellan conducts a flanking maneuver where he takes about 1/3 of his force, the 1st Corps and the 12th Corps, and he seizes the Hagerstown Turnpike and he forms a dam of Union soldiers that he dares Lee to try to bust through. Lee's not even going to attempt it. Lee doesn't have the manpower, he doesn't have the people, there's no way. And so we are on Lee's flank. So on the morning of the 17th, a couple of things are going to happen. Either Lee is going to retire from here, leave, and go back to Virginia. Virginia's very close. Today, West Virginia, Shepherdstown, we're only 3 miles from the Potomac River in Shepherdstown. Lee could go home. That's a good option. We can't get into Pennsylvania, we've been blocked, so let's just go back to Virginia and reorganize. Lee says, got my fight up. How dare you pursue me? How dare you defeat me at South Mountain? Lee's first battlefield defeat. And so Lee says, we're gonna fight. So let's bring it on. Kind of like two heavyweights, is just say, we're gonna go 15 rounds. And so on the morning of the 17th, with Lee still here, McClellan decides to attack. So we're going to attack like this, from the north to the south, because we're on the Confederate flank, theoretically. But during the night of the 16th and the morning of the 17th, Lee's brought reinforcements in. Now, as you look this direction, we're looking at Harper's Ferry. That mountain you see in the distance finishes at Harper's Ferry, where the Potomac River cuts through the Blue Ridge. And that's where much of Lee's army has been up until this point, but they're hurrying up here, they're rushing up here, trying to reunite Lee and bring the force together. And so the first reinforcements are under Stonewall Jackson, and those reinforcements Lee's going to position like this on his vulnerable flank. So when McClellan attacks that morning, you're not going to breach me, you're not going to turn my flank, I've got Stonewall Jackson, the Stonewall, holding this position. And so as a result, McClellan's men are going to be hammered as they advance from the woods in the distance, the east woods, and they advance across what's known as the famous Cornfield, the D.R. Miller Cornfield. And it becomes very bloody as they engage with Jackson and Jackson's men who have come up from Harper's Ferry and are standing in this area. So we're in the Confederate position, this high ground that you see here, and the idea is hold this high ground. There's going to be federal assault after federal assault. We're going to have Joe Hooker with his Union 1st Corps bringing in division after division after division. We've got Joe Mansfield with the Union 12th Corps coming with his 2 divisions. 4 of those 5 divisions are going to attack from the east woods across the cornfield, and Lee's going to hold, but barely hold. Finally, one of those divisions, George Shears Green's division. If you're a Gettysburg aficionado, you know George Green, and you know George Green at Culp's Hill. Green's going to go around this bulwark that we're on. He's going to go out of the east woods, follow me, he's going to go out of the east woods, go along a road called the Smoketown Road, and he's going to seize the high ground where you see the tall monument, the New York monument, and the Park Visitor Center in the background. That was Lee's left center. And it just collapsed. It's gone. It disintegrated. Green's division will seize that point. And now everything out here is untenable. You can't hold the ground. And so Lee has to withdraw. And the Confederate Army is going to withdraw this direction, to the west, to the west. I'm going to tease you with something in just a moment, but to conclude, we started the battle just a little bit before 6 a.m. It's now about 8:30 a.m., 2.5 hours. We told that story quickly. The story that you cannot see, the story that you cannot visualize, and even with photographs to help us, and descriptions and narratives to try to explain to us. We can never appreciate the dead and wounded concentrated in all of this ground. Nearly 13,000 Union and Confederate dead in less than 200 acres. Can you grasp that? Think about yourself being in a stadium and 13,000 of the people in the seats beside you are dead or dying. That's what this is. This is our own fratricide right here. We are killing each other. And we need to preserve it because we never can forget it.
Thanks so much, Dennis. This is not easy stuff to do quickly. It's also not easy to talk about. The heaviest subjects of all. This is war, okay? I mean, and people don't always know how to act on a battlefield. You know, the veterans came to realize that these were somber places, but they also had fun on battlefields. They joked around and remembered the past, and as time passes and heals most wounds, they were able to see these as multi-use places. Today, people use them for exercise and all sorts of other things, but we should still reflect. And I do think that Dennis referenced, you know, we can't visualize it, but we can attempt to, with the 5 photos of the dead along the Hagerstown Pike right in front of me there, with the 3 photos taken here on this epicenter tract, including a photo right off my left shoulder of an unburied Confederate soldier next to a buried and identified Union soldiers. To the victor goes the spoils of at least identification of some of the dead, of a dead horse in the middle of this field, of burial crews around here, and of course numerous other photos taken around here. We can look at the Elliott burial map and show that this is indeed the bloodiest part of the battlefield when it came to the dead. And if you look at that map, remember 4 wounded for everyone killed on average. So when you see all this sea of graves, imagine the human suffering that must have been here. Now, what Dennis set up here is that there's all this fighting, Cornfield, East Woods, Hagerstown Pike over there. It's setting up the next movement as Sumner's Corps, the largest Union Corps, arrives on the Army, and they're going to come in this orientation, not this orientation. They're going to enter the West Woods behind the camera there, and that's going to be the subject of our next video as we hit the West Woods over there. I don't see Dennis coming on, so I'm going to wrap this one up. Thanks to Andy behind the camera. Thanks to Dennis. We got more stuff to see around Antietam, hitting the highlights. Make sure you check out our other videos as well, and thanks for all your support of battlefield education and preservation.
Hello, this is Trace Atkins. To stay up to date on all the latest and coolest videos, please subscribe to the Trust YouTube channel. Preserve, educate, inspire.